Devils Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 49, titled Wishing Upon a Star. All powered by the Pucks and Pitchforks blog by Fansided, and also powering this live stream by Nova Product Design from Primetime Radio and now simulcasting on the Primetime Radio Network. I am your host, Sam Wu, here with Nick Villano. We've got a great guest tonight. We have the infamous Greg Wyshynski, ESPN.com writer, also the co-host of Puck Soup podcast, and he is a native New Jerseyan. And what I like about this guest for this week on the State of the Fan Address, is he voted for Taylor Ham today. He actually voted for Taylor Ham, or was it yesterday? So I love, Nick, I just want to toss this out. I love the fact that you are balanced, that you're not biased, and you allow all people, walks of life, majority Taylor Ham people, to come onto the podcast without any kind of, let's just say, anger.
Obviously, first I want to address that, yes, I am in a different studio today. I know I look like I am in the lair of darkness. Obviously, we're in strange times right now with, people having to make adjustments, and I've had to make a little bit of an adjustment. But maybe this is the ambiance we're looking for, Sam. The little bit of darkness falls for us. But just to mention it, I did ask him before he made his allegiances known to be with the Taylor Ham side. But you really needed a win after Chico kind of undressed you live on the podcast a couple weeks ago. So I'm going to give you this one. I'm going to let you have this one.
You know what, Nick? I don't need any charity handouts, but besides the Taylor Ham and pork roll thing, this was a great guest. This is a great guest. I mean, when you sent me the text that Wyshynski was on tonight, I was like, wow, it brings me back to the Puck Daddy days, the Jersey Fouls. Remember the Jersey Fouls? I loved that bit that he did on his blog. And but it's what I also like is he is a New Jersey Devils fan. But I don't know how he keeps it neutral, though. I really know. Like, he covers all these teams in the NHL. And I'm glad that you explained your new studio, your setup, because I started to think that the end of the world was happening and you were in your bunker studio. And I was kind of like, well, maybe I should make mine as cool as yours. I actually redid my studio, because normally I do the podcast on the road. I'm all sorts of places. I'm at the bunker. I'm here. I'm at PJ Ryan's or whatever. But right now we have to demonstrate social distancing and staying at home and complying with the governor's wishes. So I redid my studio, thinking that this may be for a while. And how do you like it? How do you like my jerseys? If you see on the Facebook
you got a nice little setup.
Video feed. Yeah,
you
I like
saw
your
me.
setup.
Well, I worked really hard in this week's game. Not that I don't usually work, but I really wanted this week's game to be kind of cool, because we have a cool guest. We got Andy from Pucks and Pitchforks on for the first time, so you have a new challenger. And usually I don't spoil it, but I will tell you that you were playing Legends of the Hidden Devil when the game comes. So I worked on that. It took me a little bit longer than I thought. So you saw me fumbling and stumbling trying to get these jerseys up, and it just wasn't working. So now you guys get hats, and I have a lot of hats.
Well, actually, Nick, I thought those three hats, I thought you were going to put like a puck under the hat, and then the game was you kind of switcheroo, like what we do on at the Devils game on the Jumbotron. something like that. That's what I mean. Actually, for the viewers that are just tuning in, literally, you put that whole set together at 8:57 p.m. before a 9 p.m. start. Like it was just it looked like a creepy basement that you're hiding in, and I wasn't sure. I didn't want to judge, but I'm glad that you were forthcoming and being transparent of what's really going on.
Yeah, I mean, well, we're gonna have to, full transparency. Our house has been moved to a work from home house, like a lot of others have, and that is now a working area where we had the podcast area. So now I'm literally in the middle of like the family room. I guess we don't really hang out here because there was once a roof leak here, and now we just kind of have bad memories here. So we don't hang out here too often. Now it's literally just where we put the cardboard before I break it down into to take it out to the recyclables. That's pretty much what this room is. We have some cool art in here though. We have Jaws painting over there, and maybe one day for the Let's Go Devils podcast fans, I'll take you through some of my art. You kind of see I got the Ninja Turtles up there.
Whoa!
Say no to drugs. Say yes to pizza. Yeah, we got a couple cool pieces up in here. We frequent Comic Cons and kind of see who the new artists are, and we support the small artists. We like their work.
Wow. Well, that's pretty cool, Nick. That's really cool. Matter of fact, I'm kind of jealous that you showed your behind the scenes. I'll show you my behind the scenes. I got like all this like equipment here and all ready to go. That's the monitor feed, and so it's I had to be transparent as well. I mean, but anyway, so
these are strange times, Sam.
Let's start with the first topic at hand. A little news made by the Harris Blitzer Sports Entertainment Group. It was a little bit surprising when the first news came out, but then there was a reversal. Nick, why don't you explain this one?
Yeah, so basically they came out and they were the first NHL team. I don't know if they were the first team in sports, but I know they're the first NHL team to come out and say that they were trying to keep everyone paid, but in order to do that, they had to cut salaried employees making more than $50,000. They had to cut their salaries by 20%. And that, I mean, obviously that's not going to go well when in trying times you're cutting people's salaries, because we don't know, like, a lot of these people, like maybe they're, it's a husband working for Prudential and the wife got furloughed and now you're cutting their salaries even more. So they have even less to, make things work. And then, or maybe it's, it's a ticket salesman with the Philadelphia 76ers and they work a lot on commission on top of their salary, but they're not making, who's buying hockey tickets right now? So their commission is zero. And then you're going to cut their salaries even more. Although I don't know if their salaries hit 50,000. I don't know, These are all hypotheticals, but the situation seemed a little iffy. But again, I don't know what the bottom line situation is here. I'm pretty good with numbers, but I can't look that deep to see this is how much they're losing. This is what they're going to have to do to keep things going. But Josh Harris is worth $4 billion. And right now he's obviously losing on both the 76ers and the Devils, on top of probably losing millions in the stock market over the past couple of days. So it's likely a big shock. Now, why I gave him credit, I wrote a whole article giving the Devils organization credit because they reversed that decision when they absolutely did not have to. The NHL came out after the Devils, their boss basically, and said, we're cutting 25% of all office staff. And they haven't reversed the decision. The NHL just came out and said they're doing it. Tough. It stinks, but whatever. This is what we're doing. And then the Devils, after the NHL made that decision, which gave them an out, which gave them to say, hey, this is just what the NHL is doing, they were like, this was the wrong decision. And I don't care if it's because Joel Embiid called them out. I don't care. It doesn't matter what makes you make the right decision, as long as you make the right decision. And a billionaire doesn't have to make those decisions. He could have fired everybody, and guess what? We're all still going to buy tickets eventually because we love hockey. He probably would lose some people because the Devils fans are on thin ice after how this season went. But he could have made a lot more dastardly decisions, I guess is the word. I don't want to say evil, because these are trying times and it's hard to figure out what's good and bad in these situations. But I mean, upsetting decisions is probably the word I'm looking for. Like, he could have made a lot more upsetting decisions. He could have cut the staff. I mean, we were one of the first teams in sports to say we were going to pay all of our part-time arena staff employees, and that counts for 2 arenas. That's not just the Devils. You got to remember that Josh Harris also has to pay the 76ers and the Wells Fargo Arena people, although I don't know if he owns that arena. I know he owns the Prudential Center, so I'm not 100% sure that
he doesn't own the Wells Fargo Arena, but he does have a soccer team out, I believe, in the UK as well, and they're probably shut down. But I didn't look that up. I just thought it was a little contradictory, the feel-good story, when he said that they would pay the hourly workers in full as they were scheduled, and we're all in it together at times like these. And at first I can understand from a business perspective what they were doing, but at the same time, it just was a little bit contradictory from about a week and a half earlier, saying that we're all in it together. But the fact that he reversed it, again, we don't know what happened behind the scenes, but the bottom line is it's just kind of like a referee that makes a bad call but reverses to get it right and put your ego aside. It's all good with me. He did the right thing, and I guess the Devils employees are very fortunate that not only did that, but they have an owner that would think this thing through. Me on the other hand, I don't know what's going to happen to me, with my job or whatever. But it's good. It's good to see that there are, that he did reverse the decision.
Yeah, I mean, these are trying times for most of us. I'm lucky. People know what I do for a living. I don't have to rehash it. And we are in trying times, and in times where everybody's losing their job, our job gets more demanding. So, I don't foresee myself getting furloughed at any time, because my job is as necessary as ever. Maybe we'll work something out. Maybe we'll get to talk to the New Jersey Devils podcast fans and see what we can do to help people out. We'll figure something out, Sam, because these are trying times. We ought to be in this together. But he's going to go and get our guest now. So I'm going to talk to Facebook Live. I got to do it on the phone today. So everybody just kind of stick with me while I try to see. Hey, so anybody got any questions out there? If not, I don't see anything. Maybe it's because I'm looking on my phone, so I'm not 100% sure. But I will start with this interesting playoff format. Well, it's actually a tournament that Craig Custance wrote about on The Athletic, where the Devils would be in a tournament, and the winner of that tournament would get the number 1 overall pick. I got an article up on Pucks and Pitchforks right now where I write, I think that's probably the best case scenario for the New Jersey Devils, because they had a surging Mackenzie Blackwood towards the end of the season. And I think with some time off, he could get some rest. He could be even better. And if they do the 24-team playoff tournament like they really want to, because teams 23 and 24 are the Chicago Blackhawks and the Montreal Canadiens. So they're absolutely going to try to get those teams in. That leaves 7 teams left. The Devils being, the second best of those teams. The only other team is the Buffalo Sabres, and I just don't see the Buffalo Sabres doing well with pressure. They're good. Carter Hutton's just kind of inconsistent in net. They have the best talent of the group, probably, maybe besides San Jose. And the San Jose factor is very strange, because San Jose doesn't have their first round pick. Their first round pick is the Tampa Bay Lightning. So, Sam, you're back already. That was fast.
Oh, it was really fast. I mean, of course it was fast. He's my fellow Taylor Ham buddy. He voted for Taylor Ham. Of course I had to get him on quickly.
I don't like this already.
Okay. Well, do you want me to do the intros?
Yeah, you can do it.
Okay. Well, he's a very, very, very popular hockey guy. I've followed his blog and his career for the last 10, 12 years. He's at ESPN.com, and he's also the co-host of Puck Soup. Pleased to welcome to the Let's Go Devils podcast, State of the Fan Address, Greg Wyshynski. Greg, this is Sam and Nick. How are you, my friend?
Doing well. Breathing in and out here in the Bay Area, where I feel like, as I've been telling people, it feels like we're like 2 weeks ahead of the rest of the country insofar as, you know, shutting down life and taking precautions and that whole thing. So it's been interesting to see the stuff that we experienced vis-a-vis lack of toilet paper and lines out the door at Trader Joe's kind of happening in other places these days.
Well, Greg, I live in Tampa, Florida, which you probably know is about 10 miles away from Clearwater, Florida. So we're still in spring break, I guess.
I've seen the videos, man. I you know, it's a different viral world down there than it is in other places in the country these days.
But yeah, I mean, obviously the pandemic is kind of just making a lot of us stir crazy. Here on the Let's Go Devils podcast, we're at least trying to keep it, you know, tied. I mean, luckily for us, people keep giving us content. Like Ty Domi gave us a whole podcast last week, just going out to Scott Stevens. So we're trying to keep it with the stuff we're talking about. And I was kind of talking about, I don't know, did you, if you saw Craig Custon's latest report about the tournament to crown the winner of the number one overall pick, do you think that's something that might actually work?
No. But I was goofing. I was goofing with Custis on direct message before about how much I love the fact that every team that suggests something goofy and sends it to the NHL is now like making news. Like you could literally be like, we should melt down the Stanley Cup and give everybody a piece as a medallion. Like, and that would be a headline story across the hockey world because we're so starved for content. But no, listen, that kind of plays into the fanciful desires of those who back what was called the gold plan for the NHL draft lottery, which, if you remember what that is, besides being the bane of my existence, is this idea that the more points that a team gets after it's eliminated, the team with like the most points earned after it's eliminated gets the top overall pick. That's the whole thing. And it doesn't account for, you know, the trade deadline and how that would affect it. You know, do you trade better players, knowing that if you want to get, say, Connor McDavid, you should probably keep the best team on the ice if you can. And it doesn't account for what is, I think, the main problem with this tournament idea, which is who cares if you're an unrestricted free agent? Like, why are you even bothering to show up if you're an unrestricted free agent? You don't want to get hurt that late in the summer. You have nothing to prove. You're only going to have your stock go down if you play horribly in front of additional eyes in a draft lottery tournament. And furthermore, you're unemployed in a week. Who cares what happens to your team with regards to whether or not it gets the first overall pick in the draft? It's not even your team anymore. So for any number of reasons, and this is not only free agents, but other people that, you know, may not necessarily believe that their future is with the franchise after the season's over. It's just a stupid idea. And there's probably 50,000 different ways you could probably determine the first overall pick in the draft than extending the season for meaningless games.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Devils are in a very unique position where they're probably going to be impacted by the lateness of this pause, as the NHL likes to call it, because they have more decisions to make than basically any other franchise. They don't have a GM. They don't have a coach. They have half a roster. They have 2 first overall picks. They're missing a captain. I mean, you know, how do you see it like I see it, where the Devils are in a very unique position where they might get stuck with their head coach and interim GM because there just isn't enough time to put all these pieces in place?
Well, there's two ways to look at that. The first is that it's entirely possible that could be the situation, just given how deep into the summer things are going to get shifted, and how completely protracted the off-season window could be. You have some of these players proposing models to come back from the break where we're playing games into September, and the off season is October, and then we're back playing in November. So you're right. It's entirely possible that there might not be enough runway for the Devils to make these big decisions, and obviously they're not going to be the only team looking to make them. But at the same time, and I can tell you this from having talked to a few GMs in the last couple of days, just kind of catching up and seeing what's going on in their world, the business continues. Teams are still having meetings. Teams are prepping for the draft. Teams are getting ready for the off season, and insofar as evaluating free agents on their own roster and the ones that might be available. It's not as if those mechanisms are now frozen because the team offices are closed. They're having video meetings with different departments. They're constantly in communication. The work continues for these teams behind the scenes, and I can't imagine that the same wouldn't go for the Devils. And if they wanted to go and start developing lists of guys that they'd want for head coach or that they want for general manager, it wouldn't surprise me at all to think that, or to find out that those conversations are ongoing. And as we all know in this league, it's only tampering if you get caught. And I'm sure there's any number of ways that these teams are back channeling some information to prospective candidates, even if they are under contract in other places, with regards to their interest in bringing them on as a general manager or coach.
So, I know the Devils already started interviewing people for the GM position. Do you think that even during this pause, they can just kind of try to get ahead of the game and just announce that they, we're not going forward with Elaine Nasruddin, we're not going forward with Tom Fitzgerald? Tom Fitzgerald I'm less worried about. It's Elaine Nasruddin that I'm a little worried about that they might get stuck with. So do you think that they can make this decision during this pause, or do you think they're just going to put the little whispers in place?
Oh, I think there's that's an interesting thought. I mean, there's definitely more coaches available than there are good GMs, I think, in my estimation. But you're right in the sense that if you have such little runway between one season and the next, is there something to be said for the, continuation of leadership and command from the head coach of one half a season or, 3/4 of a season to the next season? It's possible. A lot of that would depend on what the GM wants to do. So as far as any changes go, I have to imagine that the only change they would make is at the top in the next few months. Because until the games are outright canceled, you need a coach, and as silly as it might sound, I'm sure that they wouldn't mind just keeping him around and stand behind the bench and do those games and then, be off into the next adventure. But who's to say? It's all up in the air, and a lot of it, I'm sure, has to come down to what the NHL wants these teams to do during this downtime. Do they want them to be making moves? Can they offer contracts to other personnel? Can permission be granted for guys to interview with jobs when the season is still ongoing? Who's to say? I don't know. But you're right about one thing, which is that the off-season timeline that we're all used to and that the teams are used to is completely thrown into chaos because of all this.
Do you think that this is going to get worse now with the Devils? Just kind of the flux that they're in, because it's Greg, I'm a little worried. I'm not gonna lie. I'm worried about this team. I'm worried about the structure in place. We do have 2 first overall picks, and I think that there's a foundation of some sorts there, but everything around it just seems to be chaos. So are you worried, as taking off your ESPN hat for a second and putting on your fan hat? Are you worried at all?
Well, I never take off my fan hat. Come on. That's as long as I'm forthright with it, I think it's it's a brave new world. I remember when I started at Puck Daddy, it was blasphemy to say that you were a fan of a team. But now I feel like who doesn't know that Mina Kimes is a Seahawks fan? It's like I feel like the world has changed a lot, where you could admit your allegiances and still do good work, and people kind of know where your cards are. But I think with the Devils, it's pretty clear that they shot their shot. Whether it was because Ray Shero thought that shooting his shot could keep Taylor Hall around, or whether he was more in the mindset of a Jarmo Kekalainen at the trade deadline last year and be like, look, he's gone. We might as well take our best shot with him here. They shot their shot and it didn't work, and then the whole thing fell apart. It could be a few years in the wilderness. I mean, it is pretty clear, as many of us wrote in our sort of eulogies of Shero's tenure with the Devils build, and he leaves with the team in a different rebuild. And that's a horrible place to be if you're the Devils. Now, the good news is that there are some pillars to build around. I mean, in theory, Jack Hughes will end up a center and not a wing in our world. And you've got him and Nico Hischier up the gut, your top two spots going forward for the next decade, which is a pretty good place to be. And they've obviously got some prospects on the blue line that are okay. And then, like you said, I mean, they'll have 2 first-round picks depending on where the Arizona Coyotes fall within the draft lottery. I guess we'll find out exactly when that second pick will be. So they've got some stuff going for them, but they just don't have enough going for them. And it's troubling as a Devils fan to peer across the river and see what the Rangers have done in their hasty rebuild and be like, they are right now several steps ahead of where the Devils are. And that's kind of stunning to think when both teams had high draft picks this past year. And one seems very much on track to be formidable in the next 2 years. And one team doesn't really seem like it has much direction outside of maybe 2 or 3 players right now.
Well, let me ask you about the Rangers real quick. Because that team just feels like the 2017-18 Devils, where Taylor Hall carried the team to the playoffs and literally erased every flaw that existed. Do you think that I feel like Artemi Panarin is just erasing every flaw, like erasing a terrible defense, erasing questions around Henrik Lundqvist, and just kind of doing it on his own. You wouldn't be kind of worried thinking like 2 years ahead where the Devils were when they had a very similar setup?
No, because I think Hall papered over a lot of stuff, and that entire run papered over a lot of stuff. I mean, Kincaid playing out of his mind papered over the troubles that they had in the crease, but it's a different team. I mean, the Rangers roster, outside of a few guys in their blue line, and outside of Panarin and Zibanejad being the stars up front, and now I guess Kreider you could put that in that category too because he signed long term. They're just so young. I mean, they've got so many good young players in that roster, and the defense is stout, and they've got the 2 kid goalies behind Lundqvist, and the Devils certainly didn't have that going for them. They're, unfortunately, if you're a Devils fan, I mean, they're built to be an improving, thriving, better team in the years to come, where this Panarin run isn't going to seem like a flash in the pan. I mean, the investment in Panarin was with the mindset of, we're not going to be good for the first couple of years he's here. But when we're real good, there's not going to be a player close to his abilities available to us on the open market. And it turns out that they might be a little bit ahead of schedule. I think they've got a much more stacked cupboard and a younger team than that Devils team that Hall carried to the playoffs. And especially in the sense that, like, they know what they have in goal with the Russian kid. They're not going to be hoping that Keith Kincaid can come back and play the best, month of his life again in the crease to facilitate a run like the Devils had that year.
So, we mentioned Jack Hughes earlier, and I kind of want to go back to that because a lot of fans are, I mean, Greg, I'm trying to pull them off the cliff, but a lot of them are using the bust word, and obviously that's way too early for an 18-year-old to use that word. But what have you seen this year from this number 1 overall pick? I mean, I do want to add though, has a number 1 overall pick ever been through as much as losing the guy who is his locker mate and the best player on the team, losing his captain, losing his coach, losing the GM that brought him in? So do you think any of the things that happened this year for Jack Hughes is going to show us what he's going to be for his career?
I hope not. There are some things that I found kind of troubling this year. He does play like he's undersized. It's not a moment where you're looking at him and being like, oh, that's Marty St. Louis who's going to overcome his physical limitations and become a different kind of player. I'm a little concerned about that. with regard to maybe him being a center in this league. And there were definitely, there was for the most part this season, a lot of moments when you felt like he was trying to do things that worked at other levels of hockey that didn't work in the NHL. And that's a learning experience. I mean, that might not necessarily mean that he can't figure it out and work some offensive magic in this league, given his stick handling and his speed. But, I'm with you. I think people have to walk it off the cliff. I don't think he's Nail Yakupov. I think, rightfully so, when people have made that comparison, and I did it in a joking way like a month ago, people are quick to point out Vinny LeCavalier, Joe Thornton. There's a number of players that have been not good in their rookie years as very, very young players. Guys that are still in there that haven't hit 20 yet, that eventually became, Hall of Fame level players. And so, like you said, Jack dealt with a lot of adversity. You combine that with the fact that he's playing by far, if you talk to any NHL player, the toughest position in the league to make the transition to become a pro in, which is playing center at the NHL level, where not only are you trying to figure out what offensive tricks work in this league, now you're covering the defensive end in a way that you never had to at other levels. I still think he's got a really bright future ahead of him. But I do pay mind to, guys like Chris Peters from ESPN and others that have openly wondered whether or not Jack's eventual future in this league is going to be on the wing as a Patrick Kane type versus at center. And, if you're a Devils fan, depending on what's available in the draft this year, you're hoping he becomes a center, because it's a lot easier to move forward when the first two spots on your roster at the pivot are going to be filled versus, having Hischier and then a dynamic winger. So we'll see how it plays out. But I still think he's going to be a tremendous pro player. I just think he's got a lot of learning to do and a lot of growing to do, and he's still a kid. So that's okay.
It's fair enough. And we mentioned goalie earlier. I mentioned how many question marks were in net coming out of the 2018 playoffs, and then Ray Shero really just kind of took the summer off that off season, and we've seen what that's become. Now we have Mackenzie Blackwood, who at times looks like the best goalie in the league, and then at other times looks like Corey Schneider 2.0. So what I don't know what do I take from this kid, because if he was what he was in February at the beginning of the season, this is a playoff team, and I feel like that's you could say that that's too much or trying to make a bold statement or whatever, but like he literally had a .959 save percentage last month. And he had I think it was an .861 save percentage in October. So like, what am I seeing? Just please explain to me, Greg. What am I seeing? Do we have do the Devils have their goalie in net, or is this just another false god that we're all praying to?
I don't know if it's a false god proposition, but I am happy, to be wrong about Mackenzie Blackwood, because I was with a lot of people at the beginning of the season that just saw him as a sieve, and the defense in front of him wasn't playing all that good. It's tough to really be that good when you have at least two guys in your top six forwards in Gusev and Hughes that weren't really defending on an NHL level to begin the season. On top of the system that Hines was playing, which I was never really a fan of vis-a-vis its effectiveness defensively. So you got to cut him a little bit of slack, and I think he's played really well. Now, again, it's hard to gauge much of anything when you're that far out of the postseason picture and you're not playing games that are immensely important. But he's done enough, I think, in the second part of the season to warrant at least some optimism that he could be, if not the solution, at least part of a solution in goal.
So just one last question before we let you go, Greg. We know you're very, you got some quarantining to do. So, but I do want to ask one thing, because
I should tell you that tonight, me and my wife and Lambert are going to record our first Top Chef podcast for the Puck Soup Patreon. So it's the work continues.
Oh, Yeah, I mean, we had Ryan Lambert on a couple weeks ago, and we had him right before the quarantine, and he was really pushing that Patreon and the newsletter out, and I know he's been working hard to kind of keep that thing going. So you guys should definitely subscribe to the Puck Soup Patreon because that's a lot of really good content out there. But the one thing I wanted to ask you is the theory that I've been kind of telling myself is one that I got from Elliot Friedman in regards to PK Subban and his bad season. And Elliot Friedman, he might, and you know Elliot Friedman well, and just from listening to his podcast, you could see that sometimes he hears things and then he'll float it out there, and it's not a report from him, but it's just him thinking out loud. And one of those things really made sense when it came to PK Subban, is he said that he shared all those videos of him working out over the summer, and it looked like he worked so hard to make sure his back was in tip-top shape, and he came to the Devils without injury problems, and he made sure that he could play 25 minutes a night, that he maybe he got too big, and maybe he lost his agility, which was the number one skill that he had over other defensemen. Do you think that maybe if he gets a whole offseason with Devils trainers and they kind of rework that workout routine, that maybe we could see at least a spectrum of what we saw from PK Subban in the past? Or do you think this is just, he's 30 years old, he's not what he used to be, and the number one thing that made him a $9 million player was something that eventually leaves with age?
Well, it does leave with age. And there was already talk, whether it was surrounding the injury or whether it's just, as you said, attrition, that he had lost a step in his last year in Nashville, and that was why there wasn't a whole lot of tears shed when they traded him, in the sense that he wasn't the same defenseman he had been in 2 years previous. But that said, I mean, he wouldn't be the first NHL player to overtrain, and there is sort of that course correction of guys coming back looking leaner and looking lighter and getting a step back. I've seen it before a lot of times when you come into training camp. There's usually one or two guys where the coach is extolling the virtues of having trained the right way in the off season. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he could change his body, change his training, and maybe that could remedy some things. But there's also the possibility that the player that they saw in the last year in Nashville is just going to be the player that PK Subban is going forward. And then the question that becomes, if you can't rely on your usual skill set that got you this far and made you this money and won you those awards, what can you do to modulate it? Can you become a different kind of defender than you've been? Or once the agility goes, are you just not going to be as effective as you possibly could be? Because there have been guys that have certainly changed their games once they've gotten older and once things have changed for them physically. And PK is such a talented player and a ridiculous athlete that you have to imagine that he could still, do the thing, even if he isn't the same PK Subban he used to be.
Well, Greg, so, I mean, you told us you got a Top Chef podcast coming up. What else you got coming up? Why don't you plug some stuff? You got anything on ESPN? Oh, I can't do it. That was terrible. I'm sorry. But plug the stuff that you got coming up.
I had a real fun story today on ESPN, if you haven't seen it. I interviewed 25 players about their first line mates in the NHL, and it's a project that's been kind of going on for a few months, and we figured we'd drop it now since everybody's just kind of looking for something to read and distract themselves for a little bit. So it's great. A lot of really good stories, really funny stories, some heartfelt stories about players and their first line mates in the league. It's the best way I could put it. It's like opening up an old pack of hockey cards with these guys as they remember players from their youth. And then, as per usual, me and Emily Kaplan are writing every day on ESPN. We're breaking news. We're getting the latest information about how the league is reacting to all the coronavirus stuff and the players are reacting and so on and so forth. Our podcast, ESPN on Ice, is still going on. We had the head coaches from the Cornell hockey teams who finished the season at number 1 but can't play for national championships because their seasons got canceled. And then obviously on the other side of the coin, the vulgar, cursing, pop culture side is Puck Soup with me and Dan Goes Brown and Lambert. You can find it on iTunes. It comes out every week. And we have a Patreon where we do bonus mailbags every week and 2 bonus episodes a month. And Lambert's newsletter is there, and now other writing and a Top Chef podcast will be there too, because we really don't have much else to do.
Well, Greg, I feel like this might be one of our white whale podcasts, and I really appreciate you taking some time out and spending some time with us, talking Devils hockey, and at the same time taking us off the ledge and also pushing us off of it. So I appreciate the time that you've given to us.
Just because the gym is closed and I've been surviving on beer and burritos for the last month does not make me a white whale, sir.
Greg Wyshynski, everybody, thank you so much.
Anytime.
That is Greg Wyshynski of ESPN.com. And go check out the Puck Soup podcast. Great podcast. It's one of the little inspirations before we started the Let's Go Devils podcast is State of the Fan Address. And why don't you contribute to his Patreon? Because I'll tell you, Chris Ryan, he's got his text messages. Corey Massasak, subscribe to The Athletic. This one, go to his Patreon, become a member, donate. It's all about us. Great content, great guy, great interview, Nick. I quite enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was kind of one of those things where it's kind of like where the guy from The Hangover just kind of sees all the numbers and he's counting cards. He doesn't know what's happening because it was kind of surreal. I've been reading Greg for more than a decade, so it's kind of like, oh hey, I've been reading you. I feel like you get to know these people, and then we have them on our podcast. And the first time it really happened, I guess, was when we had Bryce, because I wasn't on the doc one with you. The doc one probably was surreal for you, but when we got Bryce on, and it's a guy that literally was wearing the C on my favorite team, the team that I put holes in the wall for because I've been so upset or literally have jumped, and almost hit my head on my mom's basement. I am talking to the captain of this team. So it's kind of surreal. It's surreal to talk to these people that are larger than life in your world, and then we're getting them on the podcast, and they've been so forthcoming and just giving up their time to kind of talk directly to the New Jersey Devils fans, to the New Jersey Devils or the Let's Go Devils podcast fan base. And we really appreciate that. Like it's been a lot of fun, Greg. If nothing else, it's been a lot of fun.
I think, also Greg is a Jersey guy. The first time I met Wyshynski was actually, I would like to say it was probably NHL All-Star game up in Ottawa. I think that was the first time I met him. Nice guy. He introduced himself. He wore some really weird pants that day. But he was a very nice guy. It was always, being, back then, being in the media, New Jersey Devils always getting a bad rap, but it was always good to see one of our own Jersey's Greg Wyshynski. I think he was living in Virginia at the time, and he's moved around quite a bit. Now, I guess he's in the Bay Area right now. Is that what he said?
He's in San Jose. He lives in San Jose.
Okay, so, but yeah,
or at least near San Jose. He lives in the same county as San Jose.
Yeah. So, but it was a great get. And also, one of the, if you remember the Puck Daddy bloggers, Sean Leahy, he's great. I've always loved his stuff. Obviously Ryan Lambert. There was another guy, I forgot his name, but he's got a good crew there. Emily Kaplan at ESPN.com. Very good. Very good. And, go check out his podcast. I listen to it every once in a while. So, all right. So we're probably going to have to play the game, right?
Yeah. You got Legends of the Hidden Devil. We're going back to the 90s, to Nickelodeon. You're going to have to learn how to put together that silver monkey, Sam.
Hey, you know what? I also just want to point out, before the podcast, we're doing prep for this podcast, you're kind of rushing. You want to make everything right. Greg's going to be on. Also, you're in a different studio. I'm in a different studio tonight. It actually looks pretty good on my screen. But then somebody commented in the YouTube live, because we did Shorts Guy and I did a podcast, a reactionary podcast, post-game podcast of the Devils beating the Rangers Game 6. So, we just went back in time, so to speak. And there's one guy, Halsey, was like, oh, no, you got it wrong. The Western Conference Finals were still going on. How would you know, they were going to play L.A.? I was like, what are you talking about? L.A. went through every single team and just blew right by them. So I looked it up. They played the Phoenix Coyotes, and they won in Phoenix, won the series 4-1, and went to the Stanley Cup Finals on May 21st, 2012, buddy. The Devils beat the Rangers on May 26th, 2012 to advance to the Stanley Cup Finals. So you know what? You're wrong. And I just wanted to point that out because I had other things to do before the podcast to prep, and I had to answer him back on the YouTube live feed.
Yeah, and the funny thing is I remember back then that there was talk that the Kings were going to get cold because they won so quickly, and the Devils Rangers was expected to go 7 games. So, yeah, I don't know where that guy was coming from. They beat the Coyotes in, I believe, 5 games. Mike Smith took them there, and that Coyotes team was pretty good. They were another. It was strange. It was this. I think it was the 6th-seeded Coyotes against the 8th-seeded Kings, and then it was the 6th-seeded Devils against the 1st-seeded Rangers. So the Rangers were the only team that was kind of a high seed. The Devils did get over 100 points that year, so it is kind of overstated that they were a 6th seed, they were a 6th seed. It's just kind of semantics on how the playoff format worked out because the Panthers didn't have 100 points, but they were the 3 seed, and because they won that really terrible division. And the Capitals were in there. They were a 7th seed, and the Capitals beat the Bruins, and the Bruins were supposed to be the dominant team that year. It was wonky. It was wonky that year. That year was just strange. And there was that weird they were playing it yesterday, the 4-5 matchup between the Penguins and the Flyers, that Marc-Andre Fleury and Ilya Bryzgalov just couldn't play hockey anymore. That was a wild Stanley Cup playoffs. It might be one of the best Stanley Cup playoff series by series ever, just because, maybe not best, because the Kings did win a lot of games. But by storyline, there was 7 or 8 stories in the first round, and none of them were the Devils Panthers until the Devils won Game 7 in single overtime. They won Game 6. I gotta look back at it. It's all kind of meshing together. They won Game 7, Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals in double overtime. It's all meshing together. Either way, they had a series winning goal, and the Rookie of the Year candidate scored 2 series winning goals. That's insane. But then you had the Kings, the 8th seed, taking down Roberto Luongo and the Canucks. You had that Penguins and Flyers rivalry. You had Alex Ovechkin winning that series against the Bruins. Didn't the 8th seed give the Rangers a run too that year? It was that season was wild, Greg. I'm sorry, Sam. You're back.
I was about to say, I was like, should I take that as a compliment, or was Greg still on the line? Because I have Andy. I actually have Andy on the line. I'm like, wait a second, did I screw up?
No.
All right, so let's play the game. Now, how do you pronounce Andy's last name? We didn't go over this in pre-production meeting. Is it Studna? Studna? Maybe we should ask him since he's listening in. On the Nova Product Design Hotline. Yeah, on the Nova Product Design Hotline, we have our good friend from Pucks and Pitchforks blog, Andy Studna. I think that's how you pronounce it. Studna? Okay.
Studna.
All right.
Like that, yep.
Oh, great. Andy Studna to play the Woo in the big game that we always play at the end of the podcast. Nick, you've been like jumpy and excited all night to play this game because I'm just all worn out. It's towards the end of the night, but I got my second win right now. And Andy, no offense, but nobody beats the Woo.
Sam, I'm shaking in my boots right now. So.
No, well, that's good. I'm glad that you put on shoes during the quarantine. That's always good. So Andy, are you old enough to remember Legends of the Hidden Temple?
Not specifically, but I know what you're talking about. Like, I know of the show, but not enough.
Okay.
Not old enough to remember specifics from it.
I am learning that I'm older than all of my writers by like a decade, and it makes me sad all the time because I don't feel like I'm that old. But anyway, Sam, do you remember Legends of the Hidden Temple?
I'm older than you, and I've lived under a rock for the last 35 years. So no, I don't.
Okay, so Legends, just a quick recap for those who don't know what Legends of the Hidden Temple are, which is inexplicable. It was one of those Nickelodeon game shows that in the 90s they just made like 100 of. Like they had What Would You Do? They had Figure It Out. They had Double Dare. They had all those games. I think it was Double Dare 2000 in the 90s when they brought it back. But Legends of the Hidden Temple had 8 teams, 2 kids per team, and they had all these different teams like the Purple Parrots and the I think it was the Green Jaguars and the Red Barracudas and all those other things. So each team, each week they did the thing, they would have to go through 4 levels of competition, right? So for Legends of the Hidden Devil, we're going to go 3 levels of competition because we only have so much time to do this podcast. And the first competition always on Legends of the Hidden Temple was called the Moat. Basically, they would just have a giant swimming pool and put a bunch of obstacles in the way. And the 2 teams that didn't make it lost. They were out of the game. So 4 of the 6 teams would make it. So to build around that, what our moat is going to be is I'm going to ask Sam one question and then Andy a different question. And you have to get 4 of the 6 in order to win. Whoever, we're going to see who can get the most of the 6, and that's the person that's going to win that round. So I'm going to ask you a question, and then you're going to tell me 4 of the 6 answers, or I'm sorry, you're going to tell me as many of the 6 answers as you can, and whoever gets the highest number before getting one wrong wins that round. I think I just messed up explaining it, but do you guys understand?
I'll understand after Andy goes first.
Okay.
Great.
It's self-explanatory once I ask you the question. So right now I have the 6. So Andy goes first. Andy, I have the 6th highest draft picks in New Jersey Devils history. The 6th highest by number, by the number where they were drafted. Name the highest draft picks in New Jersey Devils history before getting one wrong.
Ooh. Hughes, Heischer.
It's 1, 2.
Niedermeyer.
It's 3.
Zaka.
That is incorrect. So you got 3.
Oh.
So Sam, this is probably in your wheelhouse because this is a lot of 80s, but it goes
Kirk
Jack
Muller.
Hughes and Nico Hitch. Kirk Muller was there,
Muller?
but this isn't your question anymore.
Oh, okay.
It's Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier were number 1 overalls. Kirk Muller and Brendan Shanahan were number 2 overalls. And then Scott Niedermeyer, Craig Wolanin, and Neil Brady were number 3 overalls. I didn't think anybody was getting Craig Wolanin, so I didn't count him as one of the 6. If you got that, I would have given you an extra point because Craig Wolanin.
No, it's actually Walhellen. I think it's Walhellen.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I'm just sorry. I'm the oldest of the bunch.
Yeah. Listen, that's way before my time, and I feel like I go back decently far, but that one's before me. So Sam, your question is, who are the New Jersey Devils draft picks who have played the most games? Now, these games don't have to be with the Devils. They're just players the Devils drafted that played the most games in the NHL.
Ken Danico, that's the low-hanging fruit. It's got to be.
Yeah, that's one.
Boy, this is hard. Martin Brodeur.
That's two.
Patrick Elias.
That isn't correct. Sam, you lost the round.
Yeah, you know what? I was thinking about, but I was just getting nervous, so I just wanted to say something instead of just stalling.
The other players, number 1 on the list was Brendan Shanahan. Number 2 on the list was Pat Verbeek. Number 3 on the list was Kirk Muller. Number 4 was Ken Danico. Number 5, Brodeur. And then number 6 was Scott Niedermayer. So congrats, Angela. You win round 1.
Awesome.
All right, so round 2 is called the Steps of Knowledge. So this was also a game in Legends of the Hidden Temple where they would answer questions, and every question they got correct, they got to step down on one of the steps of knowledge. Now, to win, you had to walk down all 4 steps. So what I've done for our steps of knowledge is I have a series of true-false statements. So I'm going to say a statement, and you're going to tell me if it's true or false. Now, in the steps of knowledge during Legends of the Hidden Temple, they would have an artifact, and every question was about that artifact. So our artifact is going to be the 1999-2000 Stanley Cup champion New Jersey Devils. All of these statements are pertaining to that team. So you are going to answer, and if you get one right, you get to go again. If you get it wrong, then the next person gets the next question. So, Andy, you can sweep this and win this round. End the game. Actually, I guess I have to give Sam the first question. Sorry, Andy. Sam, you're going to have to get the first question since Sam is losing. What's up, Sam?
That sucks because I wasn't paying attention. But give me the first question.
You literally just have to tell me you have to tell me if the statement is true or false.
Okay.
In the 1999-2000 campaign, the New Jersey Devils fired their head coach on March 23rd.
It was a leap year, right?
It was. It was indeed a leap year.
True.
That's correct. They fired Robbie Fjorek on March 23rd, replaced him with Larry Robinson. Larry Robinson took them to the Stanley Cup Finals and won. In those Stanley Cup Finals, Martin Brodeur had 0 shutouts.
They played Dallas that year. They won 7-3 in the first game, I think. He had a he was pitching a shutout, I think. Second game, I think they lost 2-1 because I went to that game. Games 3 and 4, there was a lot of scoring in Dallas. They lost 1-0 game 5. It was stupid Malakoff missing his assignment in triple overtime when I had to go pee and I didn't leave my seat, where Mike Madonna scored. And they won 2-1 overtime, and Dallas clinched the Stanley Cup. That was the Arnott goals, double overtime. So I like to say, wait. So he had, what was the question? He had no shutouts?
After all that, you just got to answer it.
I forgot what the question was.
That sounds like a you problem.
Yeah. Is it true that he did not have any shutouts, or was it false? Did he have shutouts? Shoot. And I can't even go to the replay. Although actually technically I can. Yeah, and
You have 5
Anthony
seconds. 5, 4,
false.
3. That's incorrect. It's true that he had 0 shutouts in the Stanley Cup final.
Oh my God. After all that, this is when you get this is like when you get an F on a test, but the teacher gives you like the bell curve because you did try. Holy crap. You know what? This is what happens.
So, Andy, can you tell me?
Time.
Andy, Scott Niedermayer was an alternate captain on the 1999-2000 Devils.
Oh, Jesus. I'm going to have to go with... Ooh. I'm going to have to go with false.
That is correct, and it's one of the many famous trick game questions that I ask that make you really think about things. But Jason Arnott and Randy McKay were the alternate captains in the Stanley Cup picture. I'm sure that Scott wore the A one game or something stupid, but when they took the team picture with the Stanley Cup, Randy McKay and Jason Arnott were wearing the A's.
Hey,
So Rob, we talked earlier about how Robbie Ftorek was fired right before the playoffs. But Andy, can you tell me, do you still see Robbie Ftorek's name on the Stanley Cup under the 1999-2000 Devils?
This one's going to be another 50-50 guess here. I'm going to say true.
That is true. Another step down for Andy. Robbie Ftorek was kept on as a scout with the New Jersey Devils, so he got his name on the Stanley Cup. It's a very awkward transition. Hey, we're going to fire you from your job and move you to scout, but Lou Lamoriello. So Andy, can you tell me, we all know that Patrick Elias passed to Jason Arnott for the series winning, for the Stanley Cup winning goal. Ironically, they were also the two players that led the team in playoff points.
So is this true or false that they were the two leaders?
Correct.
I'm going to say false.
That is indeed true. So Sam, you're back in the game.
Hey, where's the meat?
So Sam, your statement is nobody on the Devils broke 70 points despite leading the league in scoring.
Could you repeat that? Because I may have a question on that question.
Nobody on the team, on the Devils, broke 70 points in the regular season despite leading the league in scoring.
Despite leading the league in scoring?
Correct.
Despite leading the league in scoring, nobody on the team scored more than 70 points. False.
That's correct. Just barely, but that's correct. Patrick Elias had 72 points on that team to lead the team. So, Sam, this is one of the most famous gifs in New Jersey Devils history is the head coach pulling up a wooden bench and hurling it on the ice. This happened in January of this season.
Hold on. I would say 2000, 99, 2000 season. So 2000?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm correct?
Are you saying true?
Oh. True.
Okay, that is correct. You go down to the third step. Sam, if you get this, you win this round. Scott Gomez famously won the Calder Trophy during that season. He was the only player on the Devils to even be a finalist for any regular season award that season.
Regular season award. Something tells me that Ken Danico, what year did he win the Masterson? But Conn Smythe is playoffs. I would say false.
No, that's true. I'm double checking now
Really?
to see the Bill Masterton Trophy.
I could have. And when did Brodeur and did he win the Jennings that year?
No, I don't believe so. Let me see.
No, I think he won in '99 with Mike Dunham or '98 with Mike Dunham.
All right, so technically Ken Danico did win the Masterton Trophy that year. So I'm going to throw that question out for you because the website I looked at was not correct.
Wait. I don't care about the scoring here. Are you saying the Woo is smarter than that website?
Yes,
is that like
you
a
can be
fake
smarter than
news
that
website? Okay,
It must
all
be.
right.
I must have. I don't
All
know
right.
where I got it from, but because
Yeah.
I was on like 15 different websites trying to get all this information. But so I apologize, folks.
Hold on one sec. I got to plug this. I have my thinking cap on for this game. It's a Dunkin' Donuts hat. It's because I support the NWHL and women's hockey and Rebecca Morris, who is a friend of this podcast. All right, go ahead.
So this was the year that Peter Sikora got injured in the finals, correct? Like they all went to the hospital after it. I just want to make sure that I'm correct. And okay, so despite that, Peter Sikora still led the team in game-winning goals during the playoffs.
Oh, that's a hard one. That's evil. That's evil.
I'm a jerk.
True.
Music over. Well, Sam, you won the round.
Really?
Yes. Well, it's just the round, Sam. You don't get to take home the car. You won like Plinko or something.
Boo. Mr. Negative.
Okay. So at the end of Legends of the Hidden Temple, you would have to go through a puzzle that was a 12-room puzzle. We don't have time to go through 12 different puzzles. So we have one puzzle, and the hardest puzzle was always putting together the silver monkey. It made no sense because it was 3 pieces. We just have idiot kids, I guess. But whatever. That silver monkey would get every kid every time. So this silver monkey is I have in my hand 5 New Jersey Devils records. I'm going to name the numbers that those records are, and you have to tell me the numbers. So I'm going to give you 5 numbers, and Andy's going to go first since he's the away team. I'm going to give you 5 numbers. Pick whichever of those numbers you want, and tell me the record that it is. Okay?
Okay.
So the numbers are 1,283, 408, 1,025, 688, and 915.
Now I have to pick. How many of them do I have to pick?
You could just go one at a time.
Oh, okay. So right off the bat, I know that the 1283 one is games played, right?
That's correct.
The other 1,001, I forget exactly what it was, but that's got to be points. I think it's in the 1,020s, right?
That's correct. So you got 2. If you get one more, you get to sweep out Sam without giving him a shot.
Could I get a refresher on what my last remaining numbers are?
It's 408, 688, and 915.
Is 408 all-time goals?
That is correct. We have a winner. So ironically,
Congratulations, Andy.
The one I thought you were going to get first was 688 because that's Martin Brodeur wins as a Devil. The one I thought you would never get in a million years was 915 because that was all-time greatest save percentage. And it was Corey Schneider. So that's ironic, I guess. Either way, Sam, tough break.
To tell you the truth, the fact that I fact-checked a reputable website that you brought into this game makes me a winner as well.
Sure. I'll be the only loser tonight. Nick Villano, loser of all.
But honestly, it's kind of like Andy winning the end because he got under $100, the big prize at the end of The Price is Right, and I was just off by a couple $100, that kind of thing. So I feel like a winner. I did my best.
I'm happy that you feel like a winner, Sam. But Andy, you're gonna go home the winner. Andy, you want to plug any of the articles you've written lately, or anything you got coming up?
Well, ideas are a bit slim on current Devils nowadays for obvious reasons, but I was thinking of looking back on some of Lou Lamoriello's last decisions that he made with the Devils from 2010 to 2015. So I was thinking about looking back at some of those tough memories as a potential next stage of this stuff.
As if we weren't sad enough, Andy's here to make us even sadder. But as we like to say, misery loves company, and we're looking forward to that piece, Andy. Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
That is Andy Stud. Felt like saying that.
He was a stud in that game, Sam.
Shut up, Nick. You rigged that one. There was all sorts of fouls all over the place. I'm gonna have a video review. I was just trying to be a class act, but this game is under protest for a lack of transparency, wrong answers, putting the woo on the spot. And then obviously a memory lapse that cost me the championship.
Well, Sam, I've told you time and time again to just listen to me. You will know where to go, and you never do. So this seems like it should be a lesson.
It's so hard when you're doing all this production. I'm telling you, it's tough. it's tough. And with Facebook Live, when everybody is just commenting, Benji, the Devils will win the cup. The Devils will win the cup. Sam has ADD. And then you see other people, Wyshynski's, retweeting us, which is great. I got the plug, the NWHL and Dunkin' Donuts, and I feel great. Our studios look great. We're feeling happy. I felt distracted. You got anything to plug?
Yeah, definitely go to pucksandpitchforks.com this week. I've been talking about the recent news. I told you I talked about Craig Cutson's floater. I talked about the owners scaling back, but we're going to have a lot of draft stuff this weekend. And I'm going to really hit the draft stuff hard, kind of get you guys to know these prospects that the Devils can get in that first round. I mean, it looks like we're going to get those 3 picks this year, Sam. So we're going to talk about as if we're getting all 3 of those picks.
Absolutely. And, I got something to plug. We're trying to put out a podcast today to keep the doctor away. Also, just check back. Stay safe, everybody. Till next time, let's go Devils.